afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everybody. This is the second leg of our Sunday afternoon Atheist Republic South Africa show. We have got a guest for your viewing pleasure, I should say, today. We have invited Erik Cipriani to come and join us. He came recommended by a friend of the channel, Justin from the Deconstruction Zone. Welcome to our little corner of the internet, Erik. You are very welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Right. So I guess let's jump right into it, and let's just talk a little bit about your journey with religion, because, I always liken my journey with religion as a journey with an abusive spouse. But could you describe your background? Did you grow up in a religion, before your deconstruction process began?
Yeah, so I grew up as Roman Catholic. I actually grew up as an altar server boy. And during that time, I think at a young age, I had trouble believing it. And I think the youngest age I remember when I really started questioning was like 12. And I live in the South in America where it is very Baptist and Methodist, where Catholics are actually looked at as like a bad thing. And they would like post things in our car windows and stuff like we were going to go to hell and all. And it made me really question, like, why would a God be upset that we worship the wrong way? This wouldn't make
Yeah.
sense. And so I think I started questioning then, like, I didn't understand. And as I got older, I just ran into a lot of philosophical arguments. I ran into an issue with why does the action of being good not be good enough to get to heaven, but you have to believe the thing to exist? Why would a good man go to hell and a bad person go to heaven? And
Right.
so after that, yeah, I moved on from that religion and studied it and philosophy and just moved further away.
Yeah, I mean, I always ask myself, and according to Christians, Anne Frank is in hell, So, you know who Anne Frank is? She's that lady, the Jewish lady that lived in the attic, hiding away from the Nazis
Yeah.
during the that was hectic, and it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. We have got somebody in the chat just asked if it's possible for you to bump your volume up a little bit because you are a little bit low.
Let's see. Is that a little bit better?
Much better, much better, much better.
Perfect.
So, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? There has to be. I find this fascinating whenever I ask people about their journey. It's some people can very clearly identify a moment where there was, it's almost like a watershed moment, and then other people just describe it like a gradual fading process, like an old friend whose face you start forgetting after not seeing them for a long time. But what was the initial moment that started your questioning journey?
I think I've always kind of questioned, so that's what is probably the hardest for me to pin down. So I think it's just a gradual. I don't know if I ever had the true belief that it was almost like a mythical thing
Right.
to me, I guess. So I've always run into that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. You get that feeling when you're amongst a group of people and everybody is doing something, but you don't get it, and you say to yourself, like,
Yes.
wait a minute, like what's going on here? This surely this can't be true, but everybody's doing it, so I might as well just toe the line, And it was, especially
Absolutely.
it was like that for me as well. And then what was this process of deconstruction like for you? Did you reach for any like intellectual or emotional resources like books or communities, or was it a complete inside job?
All inside because I grew up in the South. As I grew up in the South, and I was probably in the late 90s when I started questioning. So I graduated in '06 in high school, so I was already an atheist by then. And they didn't have options back then to like reach out our communities. You kind of just had to go with the flow.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy how that works. So a lot of the I'm I'm actually envious sometimes when I look at some of the young atheists now, and they've got all these resources. There's
Hmm.
people having debates, and there's literature, and there's videos and shit that they can watch. When I was young, there was none of you'd have to go and sit in the library and read
Yes.
books. It's like books this
Yes.
thick to get this process going. So, what do you? Let's move on a little bit to the two elephants in the room. Christianity and Islam.
Hmm.
From your perspective, what do you find like the most challenge the doctrine or the aspect of theology that's most challenging with these religions? And it's sort of like asking you what is the magic bullet that's going to kill the werewolf, but the silver bullet that's going to kill the werewolf. But if you had to take each one of them in turn, like what would you think is the most problematic theological aspect of both of those religions?
So both of them are different. So I do discuss both a lot, and I do debates on both religions, and I explain Islam is kind of like a fundamental Christian, that the Bible
Yeah,
itself would be like a perfect word. They have to believe this, but
yeah,
I think it's close between the scientific and the moral issues when it comes to like Islam, because in it allows child marriage, which is a big thing. That it not even talking about the Aisha thing, that you can marry a child, and it discusses it in the Quran that it's allowed.
yeah,
Um, I've seen some people when they read this and they really understand it, they can't accept this morally. Um, and then when it comes toward like Christianity, I think that one's getting really big pushback because the science is shown completely wrong. And passages like 1 Samuel 15:2 and 3, where God orders the mass killings of many, many people, including the babies, the slavery, the allowance of slavery, and no speaking out against it. Uh, and even on top of that, they run into massive issues, not just morally, but scientifically, that
yeah.
eventually it appears as the education gets more, people are pushing back against these things.
Right, right, right. Yeah, it's crazy how that works. It's almost like I can't remember who said it. Somebody once called it a receding pocket of ignorance.
Mm.
Where religion used to fill in, because we as a species we're very uncomfortable with uncertainty. We don't like uncertainty. So if there's a
Yes.
gap in our understanding and we can fit something into there, we'll settle for a bad explanation over no explanation at all. And sometimes
Absolutely.
this is what religion is very good at doing, is like providing those bad explanations. That's crazy.
Hmm.
Um, and when so did you go through a process? I mean, you obviously sound like you've studied these things. And I also believe it takes a very special type of person to dive deep into these religions, because fuck, I remember I was so bored. I just, I couldn't. Every time I had to go to church, I was like, oh no, not this bullshit again. It was so boring and tedious. And I was so happy when I left home and I didn't have to sit through that anymore. But it's crazy how, I wish I'd paid more attention, because I would have left far sooner. And the more that people study religions, like it either goes one of two ways. Like people study it and they realize, wait a minute, this is a load of horseshit, or they study it and they just go all in. And
Yep.
it's strange how that works. Um, so this concept of divine revelation is something that I find very, very fascinating, because especially in Islam, you have this doctrine that the Quran was whispered from the angel Gabriel to Muhammad's ear, or
Mm.
however, I don't remember. That was before the donkey ate the book or something. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. With Aisha, with yeah, there would have been a lot worse stuff if that wasn't in there. Yes.
So This concept of divine revelation is something that is present in both Christianity and Islam. And I mean, what do
Yes.
you have? Do you have any critiques on that? Because I really think that there are more plausible alternative explanations.
Oh,
Schizophrenia, somebody just bullshitting. Like there's so many more plausible uh,
oh, absolutely.
explanations.
So, like, there is a hadith, and if for people who don't know what hadith is, these are the people who was around the Prophet Muhammad who explained his life and all this stuff. And some of them are come from like Aisha. So there is good hadiths. These are people like Ibn Kathir, not Ibn Kathir, but Muslim, there is many different ones. Well, one of the hadiths describes that Prophet Muhammad used to have these like seizure-like moments, and then he would recite that he thought he had intercourse with his wives. And in this hadith, they blamed it on a Jew giving magical spells to harm him. Is that better? I saw it said volume low. So this hadith is very big that it shows that there is a chance that just on that by itself that he might have had some mental issues.
Right,
Um, even that, it just like when they say he couldn't read and write, he was a very big businessman before. So for him to have no ability to read or write, it'd be very difficult for me to understand. And
right,
for Christianity, it misses a lot. There's so much non-scientific stuff for it to be from a God that's all knowing, but doesn't even know how
right,
language starts. It's just so
right.
crazy.
Or how anatomy works. I mean, it's like
Yes.
you would think, like if this is the word of the Almighty, all-knowing Creator of the universe, I'm not impressed. I'm really not
No.
impressed.
Yes. And that's so I discussed this with it because like it has like sperm comes from between the backbone and the ribs, that it says in the Quran. And it's like, how would you believe this? And I would just debate this with the Muslims. And you ask them, says, where does sperm come from? And they just go, I don't know.
Yeah,
It has to come from somewhere around there. And they will accept it, even though
right,
everything points against it.
right. The funny thing with my go-to argument with Muslims is I ask them, tell me about Burak. Is Burak real or fake? And they will insist it's a real creature. It's a real
Yes,
creature. They have to. I mean, it's
they have to.
yeah, it's there. And then you ask them, well, where is this? Oh no, they know more around, and then the tap dancing starts. But it's crazy. It's the most insane thing. You cannot sit with a rational eye and read this book and say to yourself, this is fact, because it has to be allegory. It has to be allegory. It has to be open to some kind of interpretation. But then you get those who believe, or the literalists, as we call
Hmm.
them, the people who take it as word, 6,000 years ago, God said poof, and then there was mudman, rib woman, and the talking snake in the garden, and the zoo boat, and all the incest, and,
Yeah.
and all of that's dinkum. That's how it happened 6,000 years ago. And I don't think you can actually reason with a mind like that, because no matter
No.
what amount of scientific evidence or lectures about biology and evolution and deep geological time you are going to present to a person like that, they are going to resist, because it's something that is in conflict with a deeply held belief, and that belief causes some kind of dissonance or something.
Yes.
So there has to be a way to, I don't know whether it can be done externally. I think it is a process that has to happen on the inside. Like a person needs to be exposed to a certain set of information or something, and they need to be open to ingesting it, and then just to ask those uncomfortable questions
Yes.
for that to break down. And it's crazy how that happens. now sitting on the other side, I said to myself, like, how could I have not seen this? Like, I was so stupid. How did I miss this? This was so obviously false, so obviously made up. But it's crazy how it gives you tunnel vision. It's the weirdest thing.
I agree with that, and it's so interesting because what I always try to do, and I try to like always do my debates and show people, and I've probably debated thousands of religious people upon thousands, and eh, I've had people come to me and say these things help them deconstruct, that they've used this and they've left religion. And I had a conversation just yesterday with a Muslim, and we were discussing the child marriage, and he admitted, he goes, I'm okay with child marriage because the Quran says it's okay. And he admits it. He goes, I would never marry a child. I think it's nasty. But I have to say it's okay because the Quran says so. And sometimes, and it makes me realize a long time ago that religion will always make good people do bad things because they believe it. And
Yeah,
I don't think he thinks it's a good thing, but he has to say it is because of his own religion.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how that works. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, like, you know, I love this whole concept of people saying, "Oh, if you don't have religion, how are you going to know right from wrong? How are you going to know good from evil? How, and I'm going like, fuck. Have you actually read the books? Have you have
Yeah,
you consumed the literature? Because
it's so bad.
it's bad. It's bad. It's like we touched on things like, slavery, the subjugation of women, the the
Hmm.
the genocide. It doesn't stop. There was this. What was this book? I don't remember who the author is. The title of the book is "Drunk with Blood," and it discusses all God's killings in the Old
Oh,
Testament, and it's
there's a lot.
crazy. There's a lot. There really is a lot. Um, and I don't. It's like you said earlier. Like people who will normally good people with a centered moral compass. They they in order for them to do unimaginable evil, you can only throw in a little bit of religion, sprinkle a little bit of religion, sprinkle a little bit of fervor, sprinkle a charismatic leader
Hmm.
in there, and you have a recipe for people to just do the most heinous things in the name of religion.
I
And
agree.
they'll justify any single thing. You can simply look to the way. I mean, I've got a very special, deep-seated disdain for Islam, just purely because of the way that it's treated some of our atheist activist friends here in Africa, in Nigeria especially. We've recently, I don't know if you're familiar with Mubarak Bala. He was recently released from a Nigerian prison on blasphemy charges. He's successfully now relocated, and it was this drawn out saga of almost a decade, and all because somebody hurt the prophet's feelings.
Yes.
Excuse me. I mean, how sensitive do you need to be? Um,
Oh, absolutely.
it's crazy, and that is the thing, though, Eric. It's almost like there seems to be I know that I am not my job. I know that I am not my relationships, but certain people, when they get to a religion, they internalize it and it becomes part of their identity and part of their personality. And it is so strange how when you criticize the religion, people see it like you are criticizing them personally. And I think
Absolutely.
this is what's happening with these religions like Islam, and this is why people are so sensitive about it, is because they take it as a personal criticism. If somebody says, "Yeah, well, your prophet is a pedo or whatever," and then they take it extremely, extremely serious.
They do.
It's crazy.
And that's why I work really, really hard with like my counter apologetics, because
Yeah,
both religions have these apologetics where they try to justify and do these things. And so I try to do it to help people who have left the religion.
yeah,
And because I can discuss these things calmly and I have good knowledge, I can really show what is really true, that these people are wrong, that these things are wrong, and that I can actually step down and help atheists
yeah,
in this goal of learning, of becoming better.
yeah. No, that's amazing. And you know, there are certain people, they you know, when they leave a religion, they don't look back. You know, they just are like,
Yeah.
fuck, I'm gone, I'm done, and they just disappear. And then there are other people. You strike me as the same type of person that I am. Is like, I want to warn people and say to them like, hey, don't go there. You know, don't go there, because you're going to step on a landmine. Don't go there. I'm coming from that
Yes.
minefield myself. And it's crazy, you know, like people say, oh, why do you atheists hate God? You hate God, and you just want to, you want to strip people away from their religion. You know, at the end of the day, I don't care if you believe, you know, like I care when you want me to believe as well. That's when we start having an
Hmm.
issue. You know, you can believe whatever you want. You can believe in the juju in the forest, for all I care, you know. But as soon as you tell me that I also have to believe in the juju in the forest, and the juju in the forest wants me, you know, to have 20 wives, and you know, I can't put my PP here, and I have to marry that one. Then we are going to start having a problem. You know, like that's when we start
Yeah.
having a problem, because it's crazy how people, you know, all of us, it gives people a false authority. This is something that I've heard from Dr. Leo Igwe. He said, you know, we were talking the one day, and he said that religion creates this sense of authority that is, I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he said it was an undeserved, or an not undeserved, but they didn't earn the authority. They just simply claim it. They assert the authority,
Yes.
and that is what you know, these mullahs and sheikhs and pastors and everything here in Africa, they run roughshod over, because people think that sense of, they, you know, we are a very how can I say, patriarchal society. So when we get to things like authority from you know, especially from leaders in the community, from leaders in the household, we generally toe the line as Africans. So when these charlatans step in, they see a field that is ripe for the plowing and picking when they encounter Africans. Um, but let me just quickly see here. Let me just see. I can just talk nonsense to you forever, you know. So I wanted
Yeah.
to.
You're good.
I wanted to keep this like structured with some sort of a direction,
Oh, you're
at
good.
least. Yeah, but you know, let's talk a little bit about personal and social impact. You know, like so, you know, religion. There's a certain personality type that, you know, lets go of religion very easy, and then there's certain people like me, for example. It was a very hard process. You know, what do you see as some of the most difficult emotional or psychological aspects of deconstruction? You know, like what, for me, when I speak from my own journey, is like I just felt completely lost. I felt isolated because my entire community was religious, my entire circle of friends was religious. You know, so that had a major psychological impact on me, and it kept me in the religion, even though you know, for a while I realized like I don't believe this shit anymore, but there was nowhere
Yeah.
else to go.
Yeah, and that's I agree with that. I think that as an atheist, it's a lot harder to be able to have certain relationships with people. It's hard to make friends. It's hard to do it. And like I live in a state that has more churches per capita than anywhere else in the United States. We have a church basically every corner. And so they say if you're doing a good thing, they go, you must be a good Christian boy.
Yeah,
And yeah, and so to state you're an atheist is the equivalent of stating that you're going around sacrificing children or something. Like that's just how they view. And so we kind of sit there, and it's hard to build relationships because you can't say anything when you're at work, or you can't go around and tell people different things because if you try to, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. You can get yourself in a lot of areas. I do have to say the greatest thing is now is this internet. The
Yeah,
ability to connect to people all around the world
yeah,
with the same ideas has
yeah, yeah,
probably helped more people than anyone.
yeah, yeah. It really is the rusty nail in Christianity is the internet.
It is. It is.
It's the rusty nail that's going to give it blood poisoning. I'm telling you.
Absolutely, I agree. This is as we are connecting online and we're connecting and talking to people. I mean, when I discuss, I mean, I talk to people with major degrees. The what's called the God of gaps fallacy, where I don't know, therefore God is shrinking, and as that shrinks, and as more as we explain things, it's causing religion to go away.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's fading, fading.
Hmm.
And what was the fallout zone like for you? You said that you never were very religious, but that you did grow up in a religious environment. So
Right.
when you finally said like, "Hey, I don't believe anymore," if you did do that, what was the response from your family, your friends, your community, and especially the religious ones that they think that you you just went off the rail or it's just a phase, you'll be back and
A lot of it, I faked it till I was 18. I was old enough and I left home. And so by then, a lot of it is like my family was good enough. They were like, if it's true, he'll believe in it over time, kind of thing.
right.
And I'm still really close with my mother and all that stuff. My father passed away about 5 years ago when um,
Sorry to
they
hear
she
that.
it. I appreciate that, and it's we don't discuss it. That's the big thing is she still believes, I don't, and I have a brother who doesn't. So we kind of just like we don't believe. It is what it is. You believe, but as far as the other ones, I've kind of just dropped a lot of other people. I try to keep my friends close, that knit and try to the old expression cut from the same cloth.
Yeah,
And if people want to be super religious and do all this, that's fine. But I probably won't be over there hanging out with you all the time because I have different views and ideas, and so normally I just stay away from that kind of people.
yeah, yeah. And it's strange how religion has infected the power structures of our society. It's
Hmm.
very strange. How I mean, in our country, South Africa, here, I don't think it's possible for a person to get elected into public office unless they have some kind of religious affiliation, or if they, even the most heinous political characters, you'll find them Sundays, they'll be in church and they'll do their thing. I don't know, sometimes
Hmm.
I think it's just for the optics, but they're very clever. They know that they're not going to be elected to office. But this touches again on what we talked about earlier about how being religious is automatically equated with being a virtuous and a moral person. When when you get back home, it's a completely different story because you'll
Yes,
find that the biggest scandals are amongst the clergy, especially here in Africa. Oh my goodness, we have got you know
United
pastors
States the same way. Say United States the same way.
kidnapping people, locking them up, using people as sex slaves, and it's crazy. It's crazy the shit.
Hmm.
But the most brazen thing is how they are. The prosperity gospel is big here, very big here.
Ooh.
The more money they can rake out of that congregation, you'll have people arriving in wearing Gucci in Rolls Royces, and they'll arrive at a church that's right next to a shanty town, and you'll have the people in the shanty town coming to pay the pastor. And I'm just going like, wait a minute, like what the fuck is wrong with this picture? There's something
Absolutely.
wrong. There's something wrong here, and I don't know. It's and we had this concept here as well called state capture, where they basically had the state captured by some people with a lot of money bought favors and stuff from the state, and it's the same kind of thing that happens with with religion. It's very weird
Mhm.
how it's captured people's minds. But what do you think about these control structures within religion? I mean, you look, for example, now with a new pope that's been elected. It's like it's a big deal. There's like a whole power structure.
Yeah,
There has to be some dark room somewhere in the Vatican where they sit and they plot, they
they
scheme, and
do.
they go.
So I think something that Christianity has done that Islam hasn't done yet, and could make Christianity outlast Islam, is that they're able to adjust based on the time.
Yeah,
A couple years ago, I went to a pride parade,
yeah,
and while I was there, I did what kind of protest, and I went, and they have a church that churches would go and protest the pride, and I would go
yeah,
and debate them to try to get them away from the pride parade. But
yeah,
when I went there, I found churches that was accepting of the LGBTQ, that people
yeah,
were like saying how good it was, that and they're doing all these things that, and trying to invite them to go to their church. And so that is something that like Christianity has done very well, is that they can see where the tides are going, and they can say, well, we can accept certain things. This, and they'll say the things like, well, that's not fully biblical, or that might not be the exact way that it should be interpreted, and they will change it. And I discussed this with someone. I go, Christianity, compared to what it originally is, no one would recognize it 2,000 years ago. It's just this bastardized version that nobody would have accepted back then. That is just this. It's they're not even really worshiping what they would have thought it was,
yeah, yeah,
and it keeps it lasting longer just because of that.
yeah. Yeah, there's somebody once said to me that Jesus wouldn't recognize he wouldn't recognize this
No.
church like it's like chalk and cheese. And then you have the converse on the Islamic side. They believe that this is the way that it's been practiced since
Mhm.
the days of Medina, and it's and it's
Yes.
it's it's crazy. And but I mean, they have a point. Like at least they've tried to keep the whole thing,
The
which
same. Yeah.
yeah, they try to keep it the same. But this is also something that counts against them because this is going to be their downfall. Is this resistance to
Change.
modernization? And this is the thing I wanted to ask your opinion on. We did on the Skeptic Haven channel. We asked the question: is Islam capable of reformation, and is it
No.
necessary? And that's exactly the first words that came out of the panelist's mouth as well. Incapable of reformation. It would be considered a blasphemy to try and
Yes.
reform Islam. And it's strange, and I think that's Achilles' heel, because like we talked earlier about how we're progressing so much, we can sit and have conversations halfway across the planet, on two opposite sides of the planet. We can sit and have a conversation, and while in the meantime, Islam is still dealing with camel husbandry and
Mm.
grooming your harem. And here we are sitting in the age of technology having these conversations. And I personally think that is going to be its downfall.
No, I agree. Islam cannot change, and it's very clear like this. They say if there is one thing wrong in the Quran, then Islam is wrong. It cannot be from God. Now, if
Right.
I come here and I point to one passage that is wrong, it shouldn't happen today, that it's a bad, it's scientifically inaccurate, they will say it should be thrown out, the whole book.
Right.
And because of that, they will hold on to everything as tight as they can. And so they
Yeah.
can't do a reformation because a reformation means that the prophet was wrong.
Right. Right. It's crazy how that works. So,
Mm.
let's conclude with life after deconstruction. So you must live a very empty life now that you don't have God in your life, eh?
So empty. So empty.
So empty, so void of meaning. I mean, like, what do I? You wake up in the mornings with no purpose, and
I know. So much no purpose.
so,
Uh,
but what does meaning and purpose look like to you now outside of this religious framework? How did you
yeah.
reframe?
So as I said, I do spend most of my time with counterpolitics. I am very well studied in philosophy and theology, and so a lot of my biggest joys now is counterapologetics, and I like to teach people. I spend a
Yeah,
lot of time teaching people. Um,
it's very rewarding. Yeah,
this Oh, so rewarding. I mean, I've got theists who rejected evolution to come to me and say maybe evolution could have occurred and I still believe in a God. I'm like, at least he took a step. One step occurs. This is how
I'll
we
take
start.
it.
Yes. And I'll have the biggest Christians that will come on and I'll discuss with them and they're like, all these phils I got you. And then at the end they're like, I see how that's an issue. You're right. That is an issue there. And I've tricked a lot of them. And like the biggest question I always get asked is like, how did the universe start? And
Yeah,
so I bring up like a Grand Moppy's explanation with quantum fields and quantum fluctuations and what necessary and these are things that I studied, which they have no idea. But the reason is because I'm an atheist. I don't accept God did it. And I spend mass amounts of time reading, mass amount of time learning. I don't listen to music. I listen to YouTube channels on education from PhD physicists and philosophers. And at the end, I can sit there and point to and say, hey, I know this. And so I don't have to accept God did it no more. There
yeah,
is no more of this. And that's really where I've got a lot of fulfillment in life. It's from
yeah,
being able to learn and to do these things.
yeah, yeah. Amazing. So, if you could give one piece of advice to somebody who's currently in the midst of deconstructing their faith or questioning, whether it be Christian or Muslim, like what would that be?
Learn. Learn everything you can. Don't
Yeah,
ever accept just because.
yeah,
Because at the end, if if it doesn't sound right, learn more. Research
mm,
and don't take my word for what I say. Don't take anyone's word. Look and see what the actual people are saying because most cases from what I've learned is you learn something wrong. You don't know what evolution really is or you don't know what Big Bang cosmology is or you don't know what philosophy is. You don't know what ethics is or morality really is. You've been told, but what it really is something different.
yeah. I didn't come from no monkey.
Yeah, I've heard that so much.
I didn't
Oh,
come from no monkey.
I hear that so often. It's so crazy when I hear that. Oh God.
Amazing. So, in conclusion, now, like looking back at this whole journey, what's been the most significant or surprising insight that you have gained into yourself throughout this whole process of deconstructing religion?
That I've learned that I'm worth more than I really thought I was. And I'm an nihilist in the sense that I don't accept that there's like this overall perfect laid out thing, but this told me I made myself what I
Yeah,
am. I am who I am. And this helps me more than believing some God made some plan for me. And
yeah,
this pushes me to learn harder than anyone else because
yeah,
I am who I am and I'm competitive and I always want to be the best version of myself. And
yeah,
it's not some God telling me what I need to do. It's I'm telling myself I need to be this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. And to I have to quote Dr. Igwe again here. He said the one time he said, "What what atheism or not believing has given back to him what religion has stripped away, and that is agency, just your own personal agency, being in control of your life, being in control of your destiny, and you being in the driver's seat. You know, and it resonated so hard with me because when I was a believer as well, I was always looking for, you know, my locus of control was external. You know, I believed that, you know, God was doing this or the devil was doing that and influencing this person and causing all this bad shit to happen. And, you know, when I discarded religion, I realized, you know, like that locus of control just moved inside, and I realized, like, hey, wait a minute, like I'm driving the bus here, you know. I'm in control of all this shit. If bad shit happens, that's on me, and if good shit happens, that's on me, you know. And it's you don't see it when you are in the religion, you know. When you're in the religion, you don't see it, but as soon as you step out of it, you realize, like, hey, wait a minute. It's just so amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, Erik, I want to thank you so much for being so incredibly generous with your time, for spending your Sunday morning with us. Again, like I said, send me on Instant Messenger your TikTok or any other links that you have to your social media, and I can post it in the stream. And any last words for our audience?
Yes, keep learning. And if anyone's interested, I got a really large debate with a two-time PhD philosopher in next month, a guy named Ryan Mullins. And if anybody's interested, June 13th, that debate will occur on TikTok. So follow me, and hopefully you can watch some of my lives and get to watch that debate, one-on-one formal debate with me and him.
Amazing. We'll definitely look out for that. Take care, my friend. Very nice meeting you, and keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you. Goodbye.